All right, everyone, welcome to another great episode of Scott Talk. Today we have Michael Constantine. He's the singer from a great band called Barrel Bones, and they are out of Michigan. What's up, Michael? How you doing, man? Thanks for being here.
What's up, Scott? Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it. Happy to be here. Happy to be talking to somebody about rock and roll music today instead of all the other crazy things that are going on in the world. So
Right.
it's a nice distraction.
Yeah, we'll just pretend none of that stuff is happening. And how is 2021 treating you so far?
So far, so good. Grateful. Um, we're keeping on our train, making music, trying to finish making the second record here over the next couple of months. So that's just our process right now. We all got great families and people to lean on. So we've been pretty fortunate, pretty happy right now. So hopefully you are the same.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Do you have any kids? Any young kids that you have to homeschool? Because I'm
Indeed, I do. Yep,
I'm
I do.
I'm doing that too, and it's
Yep.
just god awful.
I am not a third grade or a fifth grade teacher, but I am now a third grade and fifth grade teacher, which is a little scary. But
Yeah,
I have two boys, and they're fantastic, and they have been troopers through the whole thing. And so my wife and I split time between working and teaching at the same time. So it's been eventful, but I'm sure you can attest to the same kind of learning to sort of adapt your schedule and still be creative and do everything else you want to do. So
yeah. There's a lot of that, and there's a lot of crying, fussing, and throwing things. And then there's what my kid does. No,
yeah, exactly, exactly.
no, but yeah, it's a battle every day. So let's get into your history and your
Sure,
influences and stuff like that.
sure,
Around
absolutely.
what age did you start getting into music and decide that I want to do this, not to just listen to it anymore? I want to actually play and all that
Well,
stuff.
right. I was fortunate to. I come from a pretty musical family.
Okay.
I have had relatives, uncles, aunts that were musicians. I have three older brothers. Two of them were very much into music when I was. I'm the youngest of four, so for me, I had the benefit of observation. When you have a brother that's 10 years older than you and he's feeding you all the great, um, influences in rock and blues and folk and all of these things, and you're getting your hands on it at 7, 8 years old. I mean, the first time my first record was Black Sabbath, and I was 9. I played that thing until it was done. I wouldn't play anymore, and of course, at the time it was cassette tapes, so the
Right.
tape wore out and broke because it was stretched because I rewound. So what was he doing there? What was he doing there? My whole thing was I wanted to imitate. So I did a lot of that. Everything I learned was imitation. So my first guitar was that guitar hanging on the wall right there. That Gibson from Kalamazoo was a classical that I learned to play every riff that I could possibly soak up before I had an electric guitar, and it was sounded horrible, but it was a teacher in that way that it pushed me to have to figure it out. If you can make it sound like that on a really cheap classical guitar, then once you picked up the first time I picked up an electric guitar, it was like, well, this is a no-brainer. I feel like I've been robbed.
Right.
I didn't know you could do this. I didn't know you could
Yeah.
plug into an amp, and then all these pedals came into play, and next thing you know. So but I definitely I grew up starting to play slide guitar blues music pretty early, 12, 13 years old. um, I was right into Muddy Waters. I was right into Elmore James, Robert Johnson, Book of White, Lead Belly, things like that. That really just blew my mind. Just the fact that one person with a guitar and a vocal could blow your mind that easily, at least for me, I wanted to do that. So it was all about learn whatever you can to do that in the simplest form. And that's why blues music always spoke to me. So
Gotcha.
and that happy medium of blues and rock together, finding that simulation between the both. So I suppose it was pretty early. Started songwriting really early. Didn't really have, never really, only had one cover band to begin with, and the rest of it from there was me. You know, I wrote these 6 songs, guys. Try and learn them.
Right.
At 15, and everyone kind of looked at me like, "We don't want to do that. We want to play this band or that band or whatever." And it was like, "Oh, that's boring. I don't want to do that." So
Yeah, the cover band thing is
um,
it's hard for original people that write songs never want to be in a cover band. It's just how it is.
No,
You
it's
know.
tough. Yeah, I applaud people who can do it because there are people who can do it well and they blow
Yeah.
my mind. One of your podcasts that I got the chance to watch, once Merchant tipped me off to your podcast,
Yeah.
and I watched the one with the guy who heads up the Zeppelin cover band,
Oh
and
yeah.
then I started looking at all that stuff, and
Yeah.
my mind was that stuff blows my mind. I mean
Yeah.
that's amazing, and that's where you really go. Now that's if you're going to do it, that's how you do it. That's how
Right.
you cover stuff. You take it and then you just expand it and blow it out of the water. So that's kind of, to me, I never was comfortable doing that, and I absolutely 100% just enjoy thoroughly someone who can do that. Put that together is amazing. So
Yeah, yeah, and everyone he's talking about Antonio Bollett, in the light of Led Zeppelin, fantastic Led Zeppelin tribute band, and
yeah.
so you were self-taught then. You never took any lessons.
No, I don't have any formal training. I can't write music down. I
Okay.
wish I could. I've worked with guys that can do that.
Yeah.
They blow my mind for sure. That stuff is amazing. And getting to work with people who are classically trained has been something that I have had a chance to do, and I love that because I'm when I'm in the room with people like that, it's like cool. I am like way at the bottom of the food chain here, and I'm learning. I'm just like, how'd you do that? What'd you do? Oh, that'll simplify some things over here. For me when I'm writing, but for me it's demoing. So the the advent, the innovation of digital recording changed everything for us dramatically. When you were able to go from now I can do everything at home in my computer. That's the only way I can communicate to the guys in the band is it's this that now I know a little bit of theory. I took piano when I was a kid. I know how to tell somebody we're playing in this key, but I am not advanced at all. So in rock
Yeah.
and roll as it is in blues, it's a lot of times it's like this is what feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't find too many like. Well, I mean, I don't know, but I would assume most blues guitarists are probably self-taught, and sure they know theory.
They do.
I'm not saying none of them don't, but
Yeah.
I would guess to venture that, if they're looking for the right chord, they're not going to go, oh, an A minor pentatonic or whatever might sound good here. I think they're just going
Yeah.
to know naturally where it is because they know their guitar so well. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So definitely, for me, I think it's probably a blend of seeking out the knowledge when I need it rather
mhm.
than feeling like I have to learn it all to write. The writing sort of takes over and then it goes from there. So,
Yeah. And so let's talk about the other guys in your band. Pete Dunning, guitar player.
yep.
Um, Pistol
Pete
Pete.
is Pete, listen, like Pete was the icing on the cake that I needed. So I don't like being in a trio, and the band started as a trio, and the
Okay.
first record is a trio, and I play all the guitar on the record. Now I'll get into some waters where I can do certain things, but the idea from the beginning was always to have another guitar player, and I don't call him a lead guitar player. I just call him the guitar player because he does everything. I mean, when we write together, rhythms, orchestration, arrangement, all that stuff, his leads are no doubt something that I was amazed by, but it's everything else that comes along with it, and because he plays every instrument. I mean, he's a keys player, he's a string player, he can do everything, but what he does is he brings that mindset of that other color piece to the whole thing so that when I'm singing, I feel that elevation live, and in the studio too, it broadened our whole thing. So bringing Pete, and I've known Pete for years, and he's actually a good friend of my older brothers. They've known each other since grade school.
Okay.
That was huge. He came in because we played his cover band, ironically, with John Merchant. They gave us one of I think it was our second show. We did our second show as a trio, and we opened for them. And Pete came up to me after the show. He says something to the effect of, if I'm recalling it right, I should be in your band. So,
Wow.
but that to me was now he says that lovingly because I know Pete and Pete knows me. So it's like
Right,
it's
right.
not as if he's coming up to me cold, cold, not knowing who I am. And I had already had in the back of my head, I already knew that he was one of the candidates on the list, if not the top, to ask. But I didn't think he would say yes, and he did. Immediately signed on, and that was it. And that changed the whole sort of landscape because we'd already finished the record, and we really wanted to get into new music right away. So that was that was a huge blessing having him come along and be working together with us like this. Now I could never see it any other way. So
Yeah,
it was really amazing.
there's a big sound difference from your first record, which was put out a couple years ago, to the new
Hmm.
songs that I've been checking out,
Yeah.
like Trouble and Sleepwalkers. Yeah,
Yep.
big
Yep.
difference. Not sure if it's all Pistol Pete or not, but it does definitely
Well,
sound a little fuller. So
the first record is essentially a demo. The first record was 10 songs I demoed, and then
okay,
I went to find a bass player and a drummer to just redo the demo live in the studio. So essentially that is we cut it in 2 different weekends. Didn't spend a ton of time going into any great detail because it was really a sample of an example to try and generate some buzz of here's
okay,
an idea. Here's an idea. So I had written those 10 songs and I sat on them for 3 years.
wow,
I worked with 3 different incarnations of bands before I was able to put together the right rhythm section with Scott Garrison, the original bass player, and Greg, my longtime friend, confidant, drummer, partner, writing partner, everything. Um, and when we decided to make that go, we knew it was kind of like, well, do we do this or do we wait till we have the whole band? Let's just get some. Let's go in the studio. Let's get something going. Let's just get the energy going and get the ball rolling. So, that being said, that record, I like that it stands as it is. I don't know that. I mean, it is released as a record, but it is more of a demo to what we can do. And now this second record is really like making the record. So, and
okay,
we're taking more time with it, and because we're all writing this together versus the first one, I essentially wrote the whole thing and said, here are the parts, guys. I wrote the drums, bass, guitars, vocals, everything, and said, let's just replicate this running and do it. This is a more full-fledged, everybody's in the writing room together. Steve and Pete and Greg and I are constantly moving parts around, constantly talking about arrangements, constantly moving things back and forth and getting it to that right spot. So you're going to hear a pretty big difference between the two. So, which is good. I like the idea that we're taking the evolution of the band and growing it. So,
definitely, yeah. And Steve Sullivan, the bass player, and then you mentioned Greg. I can't. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name
that's
because.
okay. Liceraga.
Lis-
Liceraga. He's Mexican and Sicilian. So
okay,
he's got a lot of groove and movement in his blood. He's naturally inclined to be behind a kit, to be behind percussion. He's got an incredible sense of timing, rhythm, incredible punch to everything he hits. It's awesome to have a guy behind the kit that. He's a tank. He's a machine. Plus, he sings with me live at the same time, which I'm not really sure how he pulls it off. So,
yeah. I don't know how drummers do anything. My right hand follows my left foot. So
yep.
if I hit the right hand twice, the left foot goes twice.
Exactly.
And I
Yep.
can't I could never get rid of it. So like I could
Yep.
never
Yep.
drum. I could never drum, but I
Yep.
can,
Yep.
play guitar and bass but
Yep.
So let's talk
And
about
Steve,
yeah,
yeah,
Steve, go
and
ahead.
Steve Sullivan. We were so fortunate to have him join because we kind of got to a point where we were stuck. We had to sort of reimagine the picture and what we were going to do for the schedule because Scott departed the band in June of 19. Yeah, it's already been a year. And so when that happened, we had to go through audition period again. Pete knew Steve pretty well, and out of 4 or 5 different people, he came in and he just kind of nailed it. It was no brainer. He came in one audition, and then we asked him back. The second audition was really a rehearsal. We just said, "Here, learn the rest of the songs. We're pretty sure you're in. We're not really." And he was like, "Well, let me have one more pass, and we'll see. And if you guys still don't, and we were like, no, we let's get to work." So so that
Right.
was great. And Steve is an incredible writer and has an amazing amount of input too when we're writing and creating. So it's awesome. So
So the new album is in the works now. You've released a couple different singles, but basically
yeah, we got
you are building a full LP.
correct. Yeah, we've got obviously we released the 3 singles. We've got 4 more in the can, and we're finishing up the next slate of songs to go back in. COVID sort of obviously slowed us down getting into the studio and getting together. We've been pretty cautious about how we do rehearsals and what kind of time we put in if there's any unsafe situations in our personal lives. everybody kind of does a check in every 3-4 weeks to see where we are, what our patterns of interaction have been, and if we feel good to get together and get in the workroom, then we get in the workroom, because we do have to do a lot. I know a lot of bands are super capable right now doing this virtually, but we got to be in the
Yeah.
same room together. It's pretty hard for us to not be there. So but our timeline was slowed down a little bit, but it still will come out early this year. We've got one more session to get those last few songs in. We've mixed 4 more that are already in the can, so things are sounding great, and we're super excited to release it. No firm album title yet or anything like that, or release
Okay.
date, just because I hesitate to do that because of everything that's happened so far. Every time I set a little date, it was like completely blown out of the water. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
It's just going to take what it takes this year, and we have to be okay with that. I mean, we're fortunate enough that it's not, we all work pretty full-time schedules, our day jobs. This is not necessarily there are some musicians, this is their whole thing, and they really have to stick to a good schedule, or else they're going to lose their income stream
Yeah.
through, viewings or streaming or any of that. So for us, we have a little bit of a luxury to sort of let the schedule play out as it can this year. So, but that record will definitely be out.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
When did you guys start working on it? Was it before the pandemic hit, or?
we did, but then it got stopped because we were
Okay.
working on it. We had to enlist Steve as a new bass player, and we had to get him up to speed on the first record for live shows that we had already booked in 2019, and then into 2019, end of 19, we started to really look at, okay, let's buckle down, let's get the song list together. We had to cull from about 30 songs down to the songs that we wanted to be on this record. There was we do a lot of pre-production before we go in. So we were really close in 19 because we had the 3 singles, and we made videos for the 3 singles. We literally shot the footage for the 3 singles right before they locked everything down on the 13th or 14th of March. We had shot
Okay.
everything on March 3rd, and that was it. Now, I was really happy I had all the footage in the can, because I could at least do post-production editing, you know,
Yeah.
socially distanced. I had the stuff to work with. But then there was the problem of, how do we get into the studio to start recording the rest of this stuff? Everything was shut down. So we've managed. I mean, I think all in all, as crazy as it's been, we've kept pretty positive pressure on the schedule. And so we had a lot of this stuff sort of prepped and ready to go and plated, but we just got complete halted like everybody else. I mean, everybody else got, I'm glad we didn't have a tour booked.
Yeah.
There are a lot of folks that are suffering right now that it's their main source of income. you know
Yeah. It's really bad. There are so many people in the music industry that are affected. I mean, you're
mhm.
talking down to roadies, guitar techs, light guys,
Yep.
everything. I mean,
Yep.
zero income pretty
Yep.
much for all those people.
Yep.
Terrible, terrible times. Everyone, you're listening to Scott Talk. If you go ahead and hit that subscribe, like, and follow button. We are on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're everywhere. So wherever you're listening, help us out. Hit subscribe. Michael, the song "Trouble,"
Yeah.
very cool song,
Thank you.
and I I know you have a lot of blues influences, and I guess the band I'm about to mention does also. And
hmm
it's not an exact comparison, but I will tell you,
hmm
your voice does have some inflections of one Chris Cornell. Are you a fan of Soundgarden at all?
Yes, I have been. I have studied probably since I was an early age, and through studying, probably had to work backwards to sort of undo the studying. Let's put it that way. But some stuff you can't undo. I mean, it's nods that are I think appropriate. I mean, I feel like over the years I really had to define who I was going to be versus the singers I tried to emulate when I was younger.
Right.
I feel like I'm starting to do that a lot more now with my voice, but I think I still nod to most of the people that I'm a fan of because I love their music, and I also happen to have a similar throat style when I sing,
Yeah.
and it is the natural thing I gravitate towards. I don't have any vocal training. but I have been taught to do certain things vocally to make sure that you protect your vocal cords.
Right.
There's an era of Chris Cornell that I won't touch because it's dangerous. It's the era that caused him to have several throat surgeries, and that he then realized he couldn't do anymore. But that's not, that to me is a huge compliment. I don't take offense to that at all, because some people are like, oh, do you want to be compared to something? You're going to get compared to something eventually. Guitar players get compared to Jimi Hendrix and Stevie Ray Vaughan and
Right.
Eddie Van Halen. Singers get compared to certain. It's not a bad comparison to be
Yeah.
thrown out there. So
It's not really it's not really a comparison. It's just, and you don't sound like someone that's trying to sound like Chris Cornell. You just remind me
sure.
of Chris Cornell. And there are
Oh,
tons of singers out there that remind me of other singers. And,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's, it is what it is. And hey, I wish I could sing, and I wish I could sound like Chris Cornell. I'd be happy with
I
that.
appreciate it. Yeah, I
So,
appreciate it. Yeah, no, it's fun. It's fun to be in a band where you can really get up there and belt, and this band has definitely allowed me to do that. So yeah,
yeah, you got a great groove to you. Every song that I've heard has, I mean, you can move to it, you can dance to it if you want, it's groovy.
that was the goal, to be honest with you. So I'm glad you're saying that. I really that's a huge compliment for me, because one of the things in this band I wanted to do was I wanted it to rock, I wanted it to be heavy, but I also wanted it to move.
Yeah,
And I think that to me, like that, that is an important thing. The music that I like that rocks also makes me groove. I mean, that's it. Like you said, I mean, it's rhythm and it's blues at the same time, but it's got a heavy edge to it. So yes, absolutely. I appreciate all of that input, and that you have felt that way, because that means we're doing our job. So
definitely, man. I don't have people on the show unless I like them, so.
okay, good. No favors out here for anybody.
No favors. It's a cruel world, man. Cruel
It's a
world.
cruel world, people. Yeah, I can completely appreciate that. So
But like my first month, I was so panicked for guests. I had a couple lined up, and I thought originally, I'm like, oh, I'll try to get 4 for December, and that'll be good.
mhm.
And I had 2 of them already. Um, and then it just an influx of people started saying, I want to be on your show. I want to be on your show. And I was like,
Awesome.
this is great. But
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, all that free time I just had, it's all gone.
Yep.
What'd I do to myself here?
Yep. Yep. Well,
Nah,
and you're doing us a service by doing it. I think it's an amazing thing that you are able to spotlight, highlight, and bring this information to people that they may not know about, people that they've not heard of, or maybe they've heard a little bit about but need to know more about. So, and I like that it's not short form. I mean, to be honest with you, I really was excited that, because I'm super long-winded in my answers, if you haven't noticed yet. Um, 8-minute interviews are tough for me. I do them, but I
yeah,
tell people right off the bat, be quick with me and cut me off, because if you ask me one question, that could take the whole interview. If it's a
right.
short form interview. So it's nice to have a little bit of time with podcast stuff to get into some of the discussion and nitty gritty. And it's not the same sort of 3 questions that we usually get, which I appreciate 100%, but it doesn't give you a lot of ability to get into the depth of what, we're all about. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I had gone back and forth on, it's like, well, should I shorten my interviews, or should I, you know, like, how can I keep people's attention for an hour? Do people really watch an hour? Like, and all that kind of like questions I've
Yeah.
been flipping around. But then I thought, well, look, I'll just go, and however long it takes, and I'll just make clips, highlight clips. And if
Yeah.
people want to watch the clips, they can watch the clips. If you want to watch the whole thing, check out the
Yeah.
whole thing. So
Yeah. I'm really glad. Again, I'm super appreciative and grateful that you're doing it. So
yeah, definitely.
we were glad to have an opportunity. So
So John Merchant, how did you meet John? John Merchant is from Ghost of Sunset, and then they are on Golden Robot Records, everyone, just so you know.
yep. John, I first was introduced to John through Pete and through Greg. They were pretty good friends with him prior to me having any knowledge. I kind of took a pretty big hiatus from music for a while until I put this band together. So I was off the radar on going out to shows, but my kids, were little, and I was focusing on that. And so I got to go see John and Pete play in White Rabbit, their cover band. Now that was fun. I mean, that was the first time I'd seen a cover band in a while that I went, I just want them to keep going. Do another one. What else? And their show was incredible. Their stage presence was incredible. Merchant's presence on the stage when he plays guitar and when he sings, I was like, who is this guy? And Greg says, that's the guy I told you about. That's John Merchant. He's, that's blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh my gosh, no wonder you've been gabbing, about this for a while to me. You got to go out and see a White Rabbit show. So we go out and see them. And that's when I just really felt like, cool, this is cool. There are people that are still really digging into rock music locally here in Grand Rapids and doing that thing, that performance thing. And he's not from Grand Rapids, but he was bringing it to us, coming to venues in Grand Rapids and kicking out his style of just totally all out on stage antics. And it's fantastic because I do not do that. I do not do that at all on stage. And people are like, do you move around at all when you play? And I'm like, I'm stuck to that microphone, man. I'm not, because I play a guitar and the mic's in front of me. I am literally hammering my guitar all night and doing my thing. But he's all over, he's doing the same thing, but he's all over the place. And I'm like, I don't know how he does it, but I love it. So, and the new music he's doing now too, it's great to see him doing something that's original because he's got his own solo stuff. Plus he's got Ghosts of Sunset. It's just, he's a hardworking man. I just, it blows my mind how much he's able to accomplish creative wise. So it's neat to know him. So it's been short time that I've known him, but I'm happy to have met him in the last few years. It's been a huge uplifting thing for me musically. So
Yeah, he's a great guy. He came on the show and he yeah, speaking of guys that can talk like you, John can talk. So that was fun.
Yeah, John and I could probably go on forever, and and I haven't been on their podcast yet, but I surmise maybe at one point if we do, they have to set aside maybe a 3-hour block just so we can.
Yeah. I'll have you guys on and I'll just sit here and listen for an hour. How's that?
Good idea. No, don't encourage lead singers like that. That's a bad idea. They will never stop. So,
yeah. Not to mention, is he a hard worker musically, but he goes jogging almost every morning because I see it on Facebook and he tracks the mile.
Loop.
Yeah. His loop. I commented the other day and I said, hey man, you're really making us lazy asses feel terrible.
Yeah.
Like stop it,
Why is it when he's doing that, I look like this?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Wow. I just got up,
Yeah.
like, so, but that's good. That's good.
I'm all like,
fit, gotta stay healthy.
I'm all like, 4.5 miles, please. Yeah.
And he's doing it in the cold still. So that's even more impressive. So yeah. He is definitely an energetic dude.
So I see some drums there. Is that the studio? Is that where you guys practice and get together?
We're in the studio. This is the studio. I finally was able to, in the home I'm in now, have a home studio that was adequate space enough to do everything, rehearse plus do all the pre-production recording versus just a small rehearsal room and then having to have another studio. So this is where we do all the writing. This is where we do all the pre-production demos into our system here. Everything's tracked live when we do demos. So everything's always mic'd up. So it's just a working room. Everyone can come in and sit down. And if we're starting to work, I man the ship from here at the same time while we write and do stuff. We video, audio, everything. And so we can catch stuff. What were you doing over there? I can't remember what you did. A lot of that stuff, with the way we are, because we don't write anything down, you got to catch it. Remember rehearsal from such and such date. We need to listen to that because we had a thing in there that I'm not doing now, and so that helped a lot. We didn't used to have that. You used to lose a lot of stuff out of the rehearsal room because people would be going so quickly, you lose it. So everything kind of works really well for us now in this capacity. And it's plug and play. Everyone can come in and just walk in and play. There's no need to drag equipment in and out, which is nice. So
great.
When we're all working, that saves a lot of time. So we usually do weekend stuff now, and we've been every couple of weeks, but we were a couple times a week, once a week at least, when we were gigging, and now we'll have to see how that goes when we get back to it. If we get back to it later this year, hopefully we get back to it.
Yeah. So what are some of your hobbies besides music? Do you like movies, or what do you like to do in your free time to get your mind off of all the songwriting and recording and all the stuff that goes along with it?
It's tough because it's really the main thing I do. But I mean, with my kiddos, I do. I'm a soccer player. I coach soccer with them
Okay.
until COVID happened. We would do that. We're big outdoors people. My family, we love to hike and camp and kayak, and so I try to do that to balance it out from the
Okay.
energy of being in the studio. And I'm a builder by trade, but I also like to build creatively as a hobbyist as well in my shop. So I have a little bit of a balance of things that keep me, motivated creatively. That doesn't always have to be music.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a nice balance. I do miss playing out. That part has kind of been tough, but
Yeah.
it's been nice to take a break from it and do some of those other things. It's been quiet. I mean, we've been at home, as we've just been, I find myself with a little bit of time to tinker with this or build that or do this that I probably wouldn't have had time for, which is nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've been dabbling a little bit into the video stuff for us. I used to work in the film industry when I lived in LA, and so getting into having my own editing programs here, that was kind of fun and creative to work with Steve Secor, our videographer, our cinematographer, the guy that has been tremendous to help us build all that footage with one guy shooting with several different cameras, and learning from him and learning about post editing and stuff. And that's fun. I do enjoy that, and I do enjoy storyboarding and creating in that collaborative way to create the visual for the band. So and then I do a lot of the graphic stuff as well. So I do a lot of artwork and things like that on the computer. And so, it's just a
Wow.
little bit of everything.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, so
Creative in every way, huh?
sort of. I do a little bit of, just enough to be dangerous, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I've been fixing stuff, like it used to take me months to get the stuff that need to be fixed, but now I'm so bored, it's like because ever I was actually for whatever reason about 3 months before COVID even hit, I had barely left my house. I was um otherwise occupied. Just I never really had much reason to leave, and then the lockdown happened.
Yeah.
And I was already, I couldn't just sit in the house anymore, but I had to for, you know, 9 months and going on 10 months now. So, I mean, I do get out occasionally, but yeah, it's pretty crazy. Um, so 2021, no one knows for sure how it's going to go.
Yep.
Um, but you look like you're getting set. You got your album almost done. Hopefully, you get to play out soon um, to support the record. And what else do you guys have planned, or what are your thoughts on 2021 going forward? What do you
Yeah,
think it's going to be like?
I'd like to see one of the things we want to try and do, obviously, after getting the record finished, is try to find a way to do some of that live stuff. So if we're going to be searching for, like a lot of bands have already done, we're going to be searching for the new opportunities for perhaps streaming some live stuff in some venues where we can either stream live or record, full concerts that can be released for people to watch until they can actually get back into a place, into a venue in person. The nice thing is we're gonna, once we have the record done, we're just gonna be able to turn our sights towards a lot of those potential live or semi-live opportunities, maybe the second half of the year, maybe the third quarter of the year. You start sort of building your calendar for shows in the third and fourth quarter of this year for the next year. And so worst case scenario, if we get to August and September and things still aren't opened up, there's going to be plenty of time then to start building that potential, list for venues for 20, I hate to say that, 2022. That's like, oh no, I can't even believe that, but it could slip by that fast. I look in terms of the calendar, 6 months goes like that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in the planning stages of something, getting something, like if you're going to do a small tour or whatever, you're already taking 3-4 months to put all that together, trying to find the proper, connections. Maybe you're getting opening slots with different bands. Maybe you're putting together the schedules for the people that work in the band that can't take the time off, and what, there's all of those logistics to be run for the following year.
Yeah.
That you're really going to need the time to spend to do that. So I think we're going to be looking for the live opportunities, that because we're all going to be really jonesing to do that.
Yeah.
Which is a lot to say for me, because I'm usually the last one in the band that wants to do that. The drummer wants to play constantly, which is great because he keeps us driven to do that. But then we're just going to try and push the record. We want to try and get that material, the new material out. That's the new band with all 4 people in it on a record, out to as many people as we can, trying to look for as many promotional opportunities as we can for people to just hear the music and get their feedback. We're looking forward to just getting feedback to see what we can do differently or better, or what's working, what's not,
Okay.
So, yeah.
That sounds good.
With your help and folks like you doing podcasts, that's a huge thing. So we really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely, man. I will leave all the links for your band in the description, everyone. Michael Constantine, Barrel Bones, thanks for so much for coming by, man. I had fun. I appreciate it. And you come back after that new record is done, and we'll have you back on here again, and we'll plug the hell out of that thing for you, okay?
Definitely would love to be back. I really appreciate it. Had a lot of fun, and we'll definitely be coming back when we got the record finished and we can get the releases out there to you. So
beautiful. Michael, you go ahead and hang on. Everyone else, thanks for watching. Go ahead and subscribe to the show, and more coming. I've got some really pretty big name guests coming later this month, so hang in there and check them out, everyone. We'll see you next time.